How's it going, guys? I'm Sarcastic with the Hyperloops, and today's vlog is going to be talking about what FFG Organized Play tweeted yesterday, which is that we should be expecting a Holocron update in the near future. So now, pretty much the Holocron is like the set of documents that we're seeing, like what's legal, what the format is, and I believe the rules reference guide, which I'll be calling the RRG, is considered part of the set of documents, but I could be completely wrong. So they tweeted that they're going to make updates for this month, and we should be expecting them. So they did kind of give us a heads up. The question is are we going to have a format change for Worlds? And I don't mean like they're going to tell us all of a sudden that we'll be playing trilogies. I mean like if they would be like, oh, running interference is banned, or Maul Saber costs 4. Or whatever characters +1 or +2 points, changing the balance of the force. So we'll kind of see what happens when stuff comes up, but I guess I'll kind of talk about my thoughts on what people have more or less been complaining about, and my expectations of what may or may not get adjusted. So in general, one of the biggest sets of outcries has pretty much always been Sabine. And I honestly hate it, like despise it, when I hear people say, well, Sabine did Sabine things. And it's like, no. You play shitty, or you play some crappy deck, and then you gave Sabine 5 turns, and then she rolled 11 and killed you. Sure, maybe she rolled out round 1 and hit you with 8, but your guy didn't die there, so you do have time to recover. You sitting with an isolation in your hand and then blaming Sabine for Sabine things really doesn't matter, because that could have as easily have been a 4-speed on some other character, and then someone rolls out and smacks you for 8. Like, we've seen it before with like Vader, and like just random shit in general, where Tusken Raider rolls out and the friggin' mind probe off the Holocron and just smacks you for 5, and then you're like crying inside. But so we'll start with Sabine. So I don't think Sabine herself will get hit. While she's very good, I think that she has too many like problem areas. She has a big issue kind of protecting herself. Any of the aggro decks really do pretty much punch her in the face, because the aggro decks can probably put out like 6+ damage round 1. So assuming your opponent has like a single piece of removal, you half health the Sabine, and then you're looking to take her down round 2, which is where they start to really try to defend her, because you'll have additional resources available for like removal, or potentially have hasty exits there based on whether you took shields or not. You'll have access to like impersonate, jamming down like a second chance, your Maz's vault or whatever, or RIs that came down, start giving you time, or you could have gotten to damage now to kill a guy to reduce the damage output of the opponent, yada yada. But I just don't think Sabine will get hit. If she did, I could see something where they either gave her like +1 to screw her teammates up, which would be pretty unfortunate, or kind of adjust her ability somehow to not play it, but like just attach the weapon, and this would shut down all the ambush triggers, and it'd be relatively unfortunate. But yeah, so. In also Sabine's deck, we also tend to see running interference. This is the card where I could definitely see getting hit, and would probably bet on it if I had to be a betting man, which I am, but I'm not betting here. Running interference is the one that causes a lot of the issues, because running interference, and then I'll play like my Never Tell Me the Odds or Concentrate or any die fixing card, leaves a bad taste in people's mouths. Realistically, while it's very, very strong, there's almost no difference to peeking at your opponent's hand and taking their only piece of removal. If they had a second piece, or they had a big expensive piece, like playing Friends in the Place, it doesn't apply there, but like even Scruffy could do stuff like that. And like once you don't see removal there, why did it matter? Also prevents like force illusion with running interference and whatnot. But that's one of the ones that causes I'd say the bigger negative experiences. Like, let's say Never Tell Me the Odds didn't exist. Running interference would still be used, but we'd lose like the Ezra version, because I don't think we have another mono yellow die fixing card. So without that, like, things change quite a bit. So I can see running interference getting hit where it probably, you know, gets set aside or exiled after use. So your opponent could play with it, but they'll set up for a single time instead of, I've used it every round until I finally killed you, because they get a lot of tempo off of it. So it helps with the whole battlefield claim and maintaining speed to stay ahead. The, I guess, hyperspace jump also gives like a feel bad moment, just because hyperspace jump ending the round on any of the slower decks, just the fact that like Sabine can cast it and be real quick, or Obi-Maz can cast it and be real quick. There's only a few decks that really get to abuse it, but it does cost 3. So it does indeed feel bad, but there's always been kind of ways to play around it, or you know, pretty much be aware of it being capable of coming down and trying to avoid it. It's relatively hard to avoid that in combination with running interference, because people, you know, get to roll out and either you can't play a card or whatever, and then, or you can't activate, then they resolve, and then they jump away and go to the next round and do it again. So it is insanely hard to play around some of those cards, especially when they start being combined together in synergistic packages. So I could see pretty much any of those cards getting hit, but if I had to bank on one of them, it would be running interference. I could also potentially see them hitting Never Tell Me the Odds, just because they had hit that whole big thing where they had hit like It's a Trap and Heat of Battle. So I could see things like Concentrate and Never Tell Me the Odds getting punched in the face. Very unlikely, but I could see it being done. One of the other things we've seen a lot of complaints about is Maul Saber. It's weird because we all know Maul Saber is quite ridiculous when you have a full-on melee deck. But the one who really does get the most complaints by the casual people is Sabine. And she's not even really doing too much, whereas the Maul Saber is definitely high up in the oh my god territory, because OTK is a bad feel. And then if you take like 11 or 12 from Boba 7th round 1 because of something obscene, that also feels terrible. But yeah, so like I could see Maul Saber where they do something like either make it cost 4 or attach a resource cost to the power action. Trying to think what else. Like they could also do some silly stuff where like you can't have shields either, but that just seems unlikely. I can't really think of anything else they would do there. Maybe have the... I doubt they would make it kill itself after the power action. They could also do something where, like, I guess you could only power action it if the die got mitigated or something, and then it like kind of just throws it completely out the window. My expectation is it would probably cost a resource to do it, kind of like Boomus, and still maintain like the whole your opponent has to have no shields. That'd probably make it a bit more in line. Still ridiculous, but paying 1 is much tougher to do the same round that you cast it, especially if you're jamming that down round 1. So that's pretty much what I could see happening for that. Lost my train of thought. A lot of people complain about Ayla's overall cost. She costs 12, which really is kind of she's undercosted a little bit. And they could also adjust her special. Her special currently, because of the way it's worded, and the way that resolving a die works, because you do the effect and finish it prior to the die removing itself from the board, or like going back to the card. So when you do Ayla's special, you can have it turn its own die. You don't get to resolve it there, but it matters because, like, let's say you had a ray on a 2 melee, and then like an ancient lightsaber on a +3, and then you had your Ayla special. So like you want to mess with your opponent's die, but you actually don't want to touch any of your own dice. She's allowed to touch her own die, and like change the side, then change the opponent's die, and then her die goes away. So it's kind of like a tricky thing there that shouldn't have been allowed. They should have wrote another die on there, similar to how poses. I just got a message that there's bacon in the toaster oven. that was finished, and it got left there, and I'm receiving this now instead of 30 minutes ago prior to leaving, and I could have had bacon. I'm now upset. I don't know how to think about this anymore. My brain is fried. All I want is bacon. Okay. Yeah, man, that bacon thing messed me up. Alright, so what else we got? Trying to think, NPE type situations. They could do some form of messing up with the OTK deck. It's been on the back burner for most people, but you still see it pop up in events. So a lot of people are complaining about 7th Sister and her point cost and whatnot, but I think they're really just complaining about her point cost because she's one of the few villain decks that can adequately use the blue melee package while still having a good partner in the form of Boba, as well as the whole OTK Night Sister Sienna version. So people want her to get like a +1 because that would stop the OTK deck, as well as completely janking up. She can't combo with Boba anymore, so then you don't have to worry about that bullshit. But like I don't know how people even try to begin to call her broken. Like in EAW format, we did not use her. That bitch sucked. But whatevs. I'm trying to think what else is there. Some people talk about Phasma getting her point cost back, but I don't see that happening because I don't think they. So like it depends. The original reasoning was to mess with Anakin. They don't want Anakin Phasma. They didn't touch Anakin. Or sorry, not Anakin. My apologies. Vader 2, because we have an actual Anakin now. There's no way in hell they put Phasma back to 13. Dude, like, I've been reading it on the Discord, and it's just like, are you guys smoking crack? Because that's the good shit right there. Like, how do you forget that Vader 2 Phasma was a deck? And it was definitely super scary, but primarily lost to Kylo 2 FN, because that deck was also ridiculous. Like, I don't know. In that regard, we could also probably see FN get, just a +1. The main one people have been thinking about, though, is Ankar. And, I don't know, I can't remember if the hashtag was free Ankar or release Ankar, but I know Smurl's on that trip. But the thinking isn't to get him back to 13, because then people don't want to see Thrawn Ankar again, because that deck was also pretty disgusting. It's that they would reduce him to +1, because I can't think of any 16-point cost character besides Tarkin that people were, I guess, concerned about. Like, you could also just go Jabba Ankar, and then you get a 2-cost plot. But yeah, like Ankar Tarkin is the only thing I can realistically think of there. And you really just don't want to see it with Thrawn. I think you'll probably be okay playing that with Tarkin, but definitely not Thrawn. What else we got? The FN thing would be interesting. I don't expect that to happen just because there's a total fear of FN's bullshit. But it could be an option. I don't think he'd ever go back to 13. 14 maybe, just to get like decent pairings, because then he could get like Bobas and stuff. But that just really doesn't seem likely. His die sides suck, but there's just too much fear there. What else could possibly get hit? Ancient Lightsaber is honestly just too good. I don't expect them to do that because the public outcry would be obscene. Heirloom Lightsaber, probably also a bit too strong, but also probably not going to get hit because it's more of that's more on like the good side card that should just be used in every deck. And realistically, those are the ones that kind of mess things up, because when a card is just so good, it should always be played. It usually means that the other cards aren't good enough, and there's no variance there. None of the guns are obscene, so we're fine there. I don't think Boba would get hit, but that would be hilariously messed up if Boba got like a +1. We could see Mother Talzin get hit. Mother Talzin and Seven Sisters seem to be carrying the full load for the villain side as of right now. Like, we're seeing what Thrawn Talzin, we're seeing Talzin pretty much everything. It's all about that fixing odds life. We could also just see adjustments primarily for Trilogy. Like, we could see in Trilogy where Phasma gets her point back. So they allow Kylo Phasma, just because of all the like 3 character decks. We could also see Talzin get a point bump in Trilogy, because she's really just very strong there. Witch Magic's real good. Trying to think of, like, what are the best decks. We could see Hondo or Yoda get a point bump. That's really unknown. If they got, like, if someone got a point bump there, I would expect it to be Hondo, but I could see where they give Ayla +1 and maybe Yoda +1. That'd be mildly unfortunate, but it could definitely happen. Trying to think if there's anything crazy good in those decks. No, I can't really think of maybe easy picking. But easy picking is not the easiest to use, and your yellow guy does have to be alive. So, like, that'd be kind of brutal. I don't see any, like, the vehicles getting hit. Maybe they hit Rally Aid if Agent of Zion is crying on Rally Aid, like, somehow got through the inner workings. And there's enough people, you know, saying or doing that stuff. There's, a lot of the problem cards, to me, aren't super duper problem cards, but I could understand where people are just upset. So making the adjustments makes sense, and we'll go from there. But we do really want these adjustments within the week, man. Like, having to prep for Worlds, we have less than a month at this point. So this is kind of bullshit. Anyone that has been testing the deck for long enough, if their deck gets brutalized, like what do you feel? So, like, the gentleman that went Chicago, Anthony Badgen, and I'm sorry if I screwed up your name. So he was on the Obi Maz thing and running interference. So he gets that whole deck going. Like, what if he's, finally, perfected the deck, quote unquote, or has just put in so many reps, he's just like, yeah, this is my Worlds deck, and then running interference gets punched in the face, or it's just like, oh, like, thanks guys, like he wouldn't be completely dead in the water, because any of the very strong players shouldn't just be dead. They should have had backup plans and have been testing other stuff. But we could be, months in, people are making adjustments, and they feel ready. They're getting, like, final testing and tweaking, and then we just get completely boned, because all of a sudden it's like, oh, Maul Saber Power Action +1, Seven Sister +1, Sabine +1, Yoda +1, Ayla +1, like, just completely flip the format upside down. And right now, for the most part, stuff seems pretty good. Like, we're in the whole rock, paper, scissors thing. But who knows? Maybe they just completely blow up and shake up the format. Yeah, we'll kind of just find out play by ear. I don't think there's any of the battlefields are busted and need to be changed. Kylo 2 is a very good card. And it prevents a lot of the cheaper villains from being made. They need to pretty much be gun-based, or have, like, pay sides. Like, I think if actual Anakin from Rivals was, like, 1-2 shield resource special, we'd probably be complaining quite a bit, because that'd be pretty solid. But the fact that he has that pay side on his other 2 makes it really hard to use him. Because you have the whole pitch thing, and then you have to have the money available. But he does have triple 2 damage side, so that's real strong from that standpoint. It's just the resource sides on cards are real hard to cope with. It pretty much goes modified sides and resource sides are evil, base sides are clutch, and modified sides tend to be worse than base sides. Kind of later in the game, whereas the base sides are much worse early on, because you just can't really afford them. or you have to like re-roll and take whatever you get. But that's all I have for now. I'd like to hear you guys' speculation on what may or may not change, the different things we could be, seeing, and let us know. Honest Cast with the Hard Bloops reporting out. Deuces.